Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are, get your end of it, the
FAIRtax Guys.
Grabbing for those of you who are watching the video know what's going on. If you're listening to the audio, you almost missed the handle to pull our scrolling banner apart where it says FAIRtax.
You should know what that is if you're a fan of FAIRtax Power Radio.
Yes.
That is our scrolling banner.
Yeah, but if you're watching one of the, if you're listening to one of the audio-only podcasts, you need to go get the video at least one time and see what that's all about.
Yeah, but, take a look.
Well, I'm glad to see you finally got rid of that stupid iris virus mask.
Well, you convinced me that the FAIRtax is going to take care of the iris virus.
Yeah.
I decided to put it away for now.
If you're not sure what we're referring to, look back at last week's episode and you will see this clown and just oh mercy. Sorry, I had to get you for that.
Sometimes a little theatrics is good for the soul and good for the program.
Well, that's a good thing. Iris virus. The IRS is a virus. It's worse than cancer. And on the American economy.
It permeates every aspect of American life, and the founders of the country and the framers of the Constitution would be aghast that we pass something like the income tax. They absolutely did not want that. Big mistake. Yeah. We need to fix it.
That is why we here at FAIRtax Power Radio have been on the air weekly for over 5 years now, advocating week after week after week after week. Let's get rid of this income tax system. We don't have to keep it, despite what the politicians tell you. Mm-hmm. We've had it for 107 years. That does not mean we have to have it for 107 more. We don't have to have it for another 107 minutes.
Yeah.
If we would just pass the fair tax. It's currently H.R. 25 in the House. We don't have a companion Senate bill yet. So Senator Scott, Senator Blackburn, we could use your help here. But if we can get rid of the income tax, that's what we're trying to do here on FAIRtax Power Radio. Get rid of the income tax and replace it with a simple consumption tax you pay at the cash register when you buy things. It's anonymous. It no longer requires withholding from your paycheck. It does not require that you fill out a tax return. All you do is, a lot of states, Florida here does not have a state income tax. We support the state with a state sales tax.
So, all right, so what are we going to do next?
Let's do the Grassroots Corner.
Okay, Grassroots Corner. Jim Bennett is the author of the Grassroots Corner. Jim.Bennett at fairtax.org. Bennett has 2 N's and 2 T's. He is on the board of directors for the Americans for Fair Taxation, the national group. And if you have anything of the grassroots nature, you can send it to him at that address, that email address I just stated. All right. This one is for the week of May 20th. And the title is Iowa Team Snags 3 Fair Tax Candidate Pledges. Okay,
yes,
this
we
is
mentioned that last week. We'd like you to get as many candidate pledges. Take a picture, send it to us. We'll put it on FAIRtax Power Radio here.
Yep, and actually, after Jim wrote this, there's actually a 4th one.
Well, good.
But anyways, congratulations to Decorah, Iowa Fair Taxer Claude Mercenich, whose name we have mentioned on here frequently, a very tireless worker for the fair tax, and his team. They brought 2 congressional candidates who signed the fair tax pledge unconditionally, and one who scribbled on his but signed. Okay,
he just scribbled on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Stephen Eberle and Rick Phillips, who are both running for Iowa District 2. We mentioned them in last week's FAIRtax Power Radio. Okay. Now, the one, all right, they both signed the clean pledges and are both running in the Republican primary for the 2nd District. And then there's the candidate who scribbled, and we'll explain that. All right, Steve Reeder, who is running for the Republican primary for the 4th Congressional District. Now, it just so happens that the 4th Congressional District in Iowa is currently occupied by Steve King, an incumbent, who is a long-time co-sponsor of the fair tax. Yes. So,
and he signed the pledge. We mentioned that last week.
Yes, yep. Now, Mr. Reeder signed the pledge, but then he put on it, or Rand Paul's fair and flat tax plan. Okay, I'm
there's
sorry.
The problem. Fair and flat tax plan.
They don't go together.
Night and day. 2 entirely different entities, and people run them together like they're the same thing.
Yeah. the flat tax is still an income tax. You still have the IRS. The current mess started out as a flat tax, okay? And it will never stay flat. They will have proposed changes to a flat tax before the ink is dry.
Yeah,
right?
remember we flattened it out in 1986.
Yeah, that's right.
And now we're making amendments to the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, in some cases up to section 6,427 in a particular section. So you can see how unflat a flat tax gets. Now, from 1986 to now is a long time, so we've had a lot of time to
and the tax code is almost...
But it started the next day.
Yeah, and the tax code is almost 3 times larger now. Now, we're talking about the legislation passed by Congress, the statutes written by the bureaucrats, the instructions for how to comply with the statutes, and then the court cases, because every once in a while somebody will bring the IRS to court and say, no, that's the wrong judgment, and sometimes the courts find in favor of the plaintiff, sometimes in favor of the IRS. All that stuff goes into the tax code, and we're responsible for every syllable of it. It's not possible. Okay?
No, we need to get rid of it, pull it out by the roots, replace it with a fair tax, and be done with it.
Yeah, just one last note here. Claude got a list of names and addresses of all candidates running for U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives from Iowa. Yep, all 24 of them, and sent each a letter with pocket cards from the FAIRtax logo store and a pledge form. And he's getting some results. So
yes, but guess what Jim Bennett did?
Yeah, so Jim writes a letter.
He took Claude's idea.
said, inspired by Claude Mercennage's success, I set up a mailing list to all primary candidates, Republican and Democrat, in my state of New Jersey, who are running for federal office. Primary elections are a time to hit while the iron is hot. If the primary election has not yet taken place in your state, mine was postponed till July, as I think a lot of them are. Here are the steps. Now, he goes through this. Now, Jim is very computer savvy, and he set up a spreadsheet with all these people's information, and then he set up a letter and did a mail merge with information from the spreadsheet going into his mail merge. We don't expect people... I mean, I used to know how to do that, right?
I could probably figure it out. But,
I think I would do it manually, because to refresh my memory would take longer than it would be to, the time. But however you want to do it, you can type up like a form and then go in there and insert the candidate's name in there, dear candidate such and such. But that's something that everybody can do, is send a note, send a copy of the pledge. You can get a copy of the pledge if you go to fairtax.org, go to Get Involved, and one of the drop-down items is the candidate's pledge, and it's there in a PDF form, and you can print it out and send out as many copies as you want. So that's one way that volunteers can help us.
Get the pre-baked cards and the palm cards from the logo store. They're not that expensive.
Yep.
And just hit everybody.
And if you're really savvy with the computer, you can do what Jim did with his spreadsheet and his form letter and the mail merge and all that good stuff.
Now, manage your expectations. Don't expect everybody to answer you.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of times, and I wonder how much of it, will be intercepted by the staff, and the candidate might not see it.
Yeah.
But it's still worth the effort, because these congressional offices, these congressional candidates keep track of what the hot button issues are. If they're getting a lot of feedback, if they're getting a lot of questions, if they're getting a lot of action, if you will, about the fair tax, hey, that's something I ought to pay attention to. If it's just a stray letter every now and then, that's not much of a big deal, I'm not going to deal with it. But the more contact we can have with candidates through whatever forum they have. A lot of them are having online town halls now, or telephone town halls and things like that. But get to them, bring up the fair tax, always be respectful.
Yeah.
But always be, don't take a, boilerplate non-answer for an answer.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of tax. Well, are you in favor of HR 25? Will you support the fair tax?
You can be respectful and assertive at the same time.
Hold them down to that at the same time. So yes, That's pretty cool. Now, there's something we have got to get to here on this FAIRtax Power Radio. Not often do you get excited over something that's nearly 21 years old.
Yeah.
But Alan Keyes, and I don't know how many people know who Alan Keyes is, but
Well,
he is.
It just so happens I got his Wikipedia page here.
Well, he's quite a thinker, I'll tell you that.
He's almost exactly 4 years younger than me, but he's, according to Wikipedia, he's an American conservative political activist, pundit, author, and former ambassador. He's got his PhD from Harvard. He's had a number of positions in the U.S. government, serving overseas and so forth. He's an author, he's a speaker, and he's just one really smart character, okay?
Yeah, you got his picture up there? Can we do that? Okay.
Yeah, I'll get his picture up there for the video, folks.
Okay.
And he also ran for office unsuccessfully. He ran for the Senate. He also ran for president a couple times, not successfully, but he is passionate about getting rid of our tax code.
Yes, and he wrote an article, this is dated August the 20th of 1999, that has a fairly provocative title, and especially if you consider it was written by a black man, as you can see by the picture, Scrapping the Slave Tax by Alan Keyes, again dated August 1999. And I tell you, I looked through this, and the one thing that's in the fourth paragraph just leaped out at me. It is bold-faced and underlined. Mr. Keyes says, and I agree with him 100%, we must abolish the income tax and replace it with the tax system that was intended by our founders. A tax system that leaves our people in control of 100% of their dollars, reinforces the deep habits of responsible liberty, and puts in place a permanent and effective impediment to, get this, the unlimited fiscal ambitions of your government.
Oh, that's a great paragraph. A sentence.
Yeah, that's a great
I tell
sentence. Yeah, Mr. Keyes, that's a grand slam on steroids.
Yep. Abolition of the income tax must be a premier goal of moral conservatives in the area of tax policy, and we must pursue this goal above all because of its moral dimension. He talks about morality a lot in this letter, okay? It's important to him. And I remember when my wife and I had our business, and we found a CPA, a tax accountant, who could help us with the taxes because I wasn't that familiar with the corporate taxes. And his position was the income tax is immoral.
It is.
And so I was interested in that. The tax issue is a moral issue because it raises fundamental questions about the way American citizens will insist that they be treated by their government. And right now, they're not treated very well by their government.
No, they are not.
No, because they get infected by the iris virus.
Yes. Well, I'll make one note here real quick. He refers to moral conservatives. The FAIRtax helps out everybody, whether you're a moral conservative or not. Nobody likes filling out income tax returns. Nobody should like having withholding from their paycheck. The FAIRtax is for everybody, regardless of your political persuasion, what your party affiliation is, or even what your moral standing would be. We're not going to make any judgments on that one. But Mr. Keyes is really hitting this out of the park as far as the FAIRtax being immoral. I mean, just on a basic level, it is.
Yeah, here's another good sentence here. The income tax is a slave tax, and accepting it will eventually replace the American spirit of ordered liberty with a materialistic servility. We should eliminate the tax code, repeal the 16th Amendment, and fund the government through tariffs, duties, and excise taxes, i.e. sales taxes, as the founders intended for a good reason. Okay? I mean, he out and out calls it a slave tax because we're basically slaves to the government with this thing.
Little historical perspective here, Ron. What's the date on this article, the year?
This article, August 20th, 99.
When was the first year the FAIRtax was introduced into Congress?
That's just about that same time,
1999. So he was thinking of this even without having all the FAIRtax legislation to fall back on. He's talking principle here. And
I hadn't thought of that.
The FAIRtax puts the principles that Mr. Keyes is talking about here into concrete legislative language. It gets rid of the income tax. It repeals the statutory authority to do it. Of course, the legislation, no legislation can change the Constitution. But the FAIRtax has a clause in it which says if the 16th Amendment is not repealed in the 7-year window you normally get to do that, then it sunsets, because we are not going to have a sales tax and an income tax. So the fair tax, even though it doesn't directly get rid of the 16th Amendment, it pushes the country in that direction and says that this has to happen in order to keep this. So you repeal the tax code, you repeal the 16th Amendment, and you go back to tariffs and excise taxes like the founders intended, and watch the economy take off.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
When you get the government out of the way of business, of the private sector will boom. We've mentioned before, the fair tax changes almost every day that Congress is in session, and that instability hurts businesses. They can't plan ahead because they don't know what the tax code is going to be like next week or next year.
Last time we looked, 1,574 proposals to change the tax code on Congress.gov.
About
this Congress alone.
Yep, about 9 proposals each day they're in session. And so it's not a good situation.
Yeah, let me quote one more sentence from here. Under a national sales tax, our income will be exposed to taxation only after we make the decision about how to use it.
That's a really powerful sentence, all right?
It is.
Because it puts you in charge of your taxes. Right now, there's withholding. You get your paycheck. When you get your paycheck, most people look at their take home. They don't even look at their gross. They forgot what they were grossing.
Yeah, they don't know what they make, and people don't know how much income tax they pay either.
No.
You ask them that, they'll either tell you it's none of your business, they'll tell you the amount that they had to pay on April 15th, or the worst answer of all, I didn't pay anything, I got money back.
Yeah. And so it puts you in charge, because with the fair tax, all right, you get your whole paycheck, you bring it home, and you decide what you're going to do with your paycheck for your family. It is your decision, all right? Right now, we have the income tax, which means it's taken out of your paycheck or your retirement distribution or whatever before you even get it. So the government is in charge. You have to feed the government before you can feed your family. All right. With the fair tax, that's completely reversed. You take care of your family first. And based on your spending decisions, that determines how much tax. Because for one thing, there's no tax. There's no fair tax on used items.
That's true.
So when it comes to the 2 biggest items, a house and a car for a family just getting going, all right, they can legally avoid the fair tax by buying a used car when it's necessary, and when it's time to buy a house, they buy a pre-owned house. 90%, about 90% of the sales of homes in this country are pre-owned anyways, okay? So that's a huge benefit for people that need it most, okay? So you are in charge of the taxes by your spending habits.
Let me hit one more quote here from Alan Key's article. Liberty from the income tax would mean, of course, liberty from the IRS. We would no longer have our privacy invaded by the government. Now, we've talked at length here on FAIRtax Power Radio about that nasty little thing called civil asset forfeiture. When they they come in, they seize your bank account, they take all your money, and they don't accuse you of anything. They just think, well, we think you might be doing something wrong. And of course, a tax return itself is a huge invasion of privacy.
It is. Yeah.
Imagine what Thomas Jefferson would think if he knew that we have to tell the government how much we spend on medical care, how much did you give to your church, how many kids do you have, all the, how much money did you make, where did you make it, did you sell any stock, did you lose any money, all of the personal financial information that you have to reveal on an income tax return, giving all that information to the government. Oh man, if he wasn't already dead, Thomas Jefferson would that'd do him in right there.
Terrible idea. And
so that's the invasion of privacy that Mr. Keyes is talking about here.
Yep. The servile presumptions built into the income tax system have already had a deeply corrosive effect on the quality and extent of responsibility we take for our own lives. Yeah. When the tax is taken out of your paycheck before you even get your paycheck, all right, you kind of abrogate your responsibilities. Well, I don't, my employer takes it out. I don't have anything to do with it,
Well, if your employer didn't take it out, you'd get it.
Yeah, that's right. The income tax is also bad because it is based on a premise that destroys one of the material foundations of privacy and therefore liberty. All right, and it goes so far. I mean, it deprives you of your privacy. You know, there was a time in this country when you didn't have to divulge all this information, like on a tax return or something like that, or if you get an IRS audit, they demand all this information. And by the way, the IRS has been authorized to ignore the Bill of Rights, so even if you don't want to tell them, you have to, okay,
Yes.
for fear of going to jail.
Well,
and to even extend it further, some people get upset, you know, like they'll talk to you when you're explaining the fair tax. Well, what if somebody earns $1 million and they only spend $500,000? What are they're going to not get taxed on the rest of it? So what? It's none of your darn business.
Well, they're going to save and invest that and help the economy. So the tax code should encourage activity that helps the economy, not hurts it.
And savings and investment is important. And remember, the PhD economics professor definition of investing is deferred spending. All right, it will be spent at some time, but it's going to be locked away and earn some interest and dividends first. But it will be spent. So,
okay. Well, we highly recommend that you look up this "Scrapping the Slave Tax" is the name of the article by Alan Keyes. I'm sure if you Google it up, you can find it. And it's we kind of hit some highlights here. It's way too long and involved to get into in its entirety. Time's getting away from us, and you wanted to
the very last one. But these complementary arguments must not distract us from the fundamental one. A free people that pays slave taxes to its government is willingly training itself for bondage. All right.
Okay.
That's pretty strong words.
Right.
All right.
Now,
So,
at the end of every FAIRtax Power Radio episode, we do what we call our call to action, recommended some things that you can do to help get the fair tax passed and get rid of the income tax. And one of our own here in Florida wrote a nice letter to the editor that you wanted to get into.
This is from. I just need to make one comment.
Okay.
If you email us at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, I can send you a copy of this. Also try. Yeah, I can't put a PDF on Facebook, but I can put it in a Dropbox and then put the link on Facebook. So I'll do that.
Okay.
Now, bring home the pharmaceutical industry.
Where
All
have
right,
we heard that before?
Yeah. Use the fair tax stimulus. Now, this is from Paul Livingston, who is on the board of directors here in Florida for the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association. He wrote this back in April, and I apologize, Paul, because I kind of misplaced it for a while, but I found it. I went looking for it and I found it, all right? One big reason pharmaceuticals, as many other industries, have gone offshore is because of the federal tax code is based on taxing production. And when you tax production, you get less of it. This income payroll tax system forces costs and prices up on U.S. goods. It is time to end this stifling direct taxation code on jobs, income, investments, and savings. Taxes do change behavior, as shown by the stimulated economy caused by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Yeah, after that was passed, the economy kept booming. Unleash our financial freedom as protected by the U.S. Constitution before the 16th Amendment. Imagine no IRS, no income tax, no payroll taxes, and no tax withholding. Imagine that.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to. I would love that.
Start a national sales consumption tax at a rate to replace the old system of revenues, and fund a monthly tax rebate, we call the prebate, that helps the most impoverished. Actually, it helps everybody, too. This plan is called the Fair Tax, H.R. 25, now in the Ways and Means Committee. It is a simple, efficient, and visible plan. The fair tax would bring both lost and new businesses to our economy, increase individual disposable income, and renew the American dream of free market capitalism. Tax revenues would quickly increase to pay off the $2.2 trillion CARES Act, which is a big deal. And unless the politicians spend more. Well, unfortunately, the spending thing is beyond the purview of the fair tax. Anyways, learn more about the videos and get the videos at fairtax.org. Paul Livingston, Jacksonville. Thank you, Paul.
I guarantee his solution is better Then the HR 6690, which is to provide incentives for relocating manufacturing of pharmaceuticals and medical supplies and devices back to the United States. I don't have the text on that yet, but I guarantee you that HR 25 is better than HR 6690.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for one thing, it's a whole lot simpler. Okay, so our call to action this week, okay, join AFFT and also join your state organization. It doesn't mean you have to donate. You don't have to if you can't afford it, okay? But if you think the FAIRtax is a wise enough investment for the future, then maybe you can send them a few bucks. AFFT, their national website is fairtax.org. Pretty simple, fairtax.org, all right? And you can go to their call of action page. When you go to fairtax.org, you click on Get Involved, and you drop down to the call of action, and they will ask you to do something, and so go ahead and do it. It won't cost you anything, all right? And if the spirit really moves you, if you really want to help, join the 1040 Club. You go to fairtax.org/1040, and they ask you to commit to sending them $10.40 a month. Those repeating contributions are very important for AFFT because they have sizable expenses. It is a national organization, and it costs a lot of money to keep it going. All right.
Yes.
All right.
I would suggest also you go to Popvox, Popvox.
Yeah.
That is a site where you can comment on any legislation before Congress, make comments for or against it or whatnot, and we would invite you to go there. And of course, once you register, you tell them what your address is so they know what congressional district you live on. Then you go in and just tell them, I like HR 25. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And so not just the content of the comments, it's the actual volume of comments that gets people, if you can have 100% support with only 5 out of 5,
Yeah.
But if you get 5,587 people saying, hey, I like this idea in a given congressional district, that'll get their attention.
Yeah, Popvox is a very important site, okay? Now, in the past few weeks, we've read several letters to the editor, and then this letter from Alan Keyes. These letters to the editor and the letter from Dr. Keyes will give you some ideas on what you can write to the president about, because you can write to the president by going to whitehouse.gov/contact. And you can send the president a note about the FAIRtax, of supporting the FAIRtax, and encourage him to promote the FAIRtax and do what he can to enact it, okay? Again, our email is thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, complaints, whatever, don't hesitate to contact us. We appreciate your input. And make sure you go to the FAIRtax Logo Store, fairtaxlogostore.org, fairtaxlogostore.org. You can get all kinds of materials like our favorite scrolling banner here. Those of you on the podcast, that's the sound of our scrolling banner, okay?
And real quickly, before we run out of time, let's remind everybody we're going to be doing a live FAIRtax Power Radio show from WTOB in Winston-Salem on Sunday, July the 5th. We'll be taking phone calls. Hope to hear from you there.
Yeah.
And so that'll be a great thing to do. So, but that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The FAIRtax Guys reminding you once again that the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it. And don't mess around with that IRS virus.
The FAIRtax is a tax replacement plan where we take all the federal income taxes, including corporate, personal, gift, and estate taxes, and replace them with one national consumption tax on new purchases, above the poverty level only. This form of consumption tax comes with no exceptions and is progressive, not regressive. The poor are not paying more, and the rich are not paying less. What makes it progressive is that all Americans are untaxed up to the poverty level via the prebate, much like your standard tax deduction. The taxes are collected by retail businesses at state level, so the system is more accountable. The IRS is done away with, and you have control over your money and what the overall tax rate your household pays. The FAIRtax is revenue neutral, so the government receives the same amount of money as they do now, and it's fair because you decide what's fair, not them. To learn more, visit fairtax.org and be sure to like us on social media to help educate your friends and spread the word.